What's good, family? Shout out to my doggy Joe Allen for boosting up your man the YB's universal credit, no doubt. So we got some breaking and shocker whopper news right now regarding the WBA rankings. Sorry, the WBA wankins. Because trust me, by the time you've watched this video, there will be no doubt. Yeah, I spoke to one member on the WBA board and they told me after this month's publication they are seriously considering, they're going to put it to a public vote, whether or not to change the criteria, or sorry, the name of the criteria to officially the WBA wankins rather than rankings, one of them ones. Anyway, let's get to the February WBA Boxing World Championship top 10 wankins. Okay, so the champion we know is Alexander Usyk. The WBA world champion is Trevor Bryan. And then from there, I mean, to be honest, Trevor Bryan, I'm not even sure who did that guy beat to get that? Now, to be honest with you, I never rated the WBA ever since David Big Toe had it. Ever since David Big Toe Hay, even though he Team Lighty, either way, yeah, you know the YB, he called a spade, Team Lighty or not, yeah? Whether you're representing Team Lighty with the YB or not, it's irrelevant. Yeah, Big Toe Hay was useless, and that WBA belt was a fraud. Back in 2010s, David Hay is a world champion. David Hay ain't nothing. He a bum. And he got his bum wiped by Tony Belland as well. Don't forget that. Yeah? David Hay is the biggest shame to Team Lighty going since time began. All Lighties bow their head in shame looking at Mr. Big Toe. You went over there, you talked all that woof about what you can do with Vlad, and you did nothing. And after that, you got your big light-skinned toe out and talked about how you hurt your toe. Embarrassing looking ass. It's dons like David Hay, yeah, that started the whole narrative of Team Light-skinned dons being soft. You know that, don't you? Yeah? Ever since it's dons like David Hay and AKA Skins, they're the kind of cats who made us look zesty. 100%. Oh, look, you know, David Hay, he's soft. Yeah? 100%. There's no doubt about it. Not only the David, not even the Klitschko fight. Before that, he jacked to Carl Thompson as well. A jacker, a big tower. What else he do? Oh yeah, he ducked Fury. Wow, it's bad. It's bad. Yeah, in fact, you know what? The YB, the president of Team Lighty, the YB is removing David Big Toe Hayes. His light skin card's been revoked, I'm afraid. Yeah? Your card's been revoked, boss man. You're no more Team Lighty. You need to apply for some next team, because I tell you what team you ain't on no more. You know? Anyway. Like I said, the WBA regular belt's a joke. So, the fat Trevor Bryan, yeah? The fat Trevor Bumman. The fat Trevor Bumman has got a belt. I couldn't tell you who he beat. So, you know what? Forget about the regular belt. Either way, Alexander Usyk is the super champion. And then, we got number 1, Daniel Dubois. Who he beat? Oops. Wait there. Daniel Dubois got filled in by Joe Joyce, and what's he done since? Yeah? What's he done since? Don't know what he done since. And I'm sorry, but in my mind here, I don't care who pays you. The problem is with these governing bodies is the fact that these days, unfortunately, it's all to do with coin. Who paying coin? Now, I don't care what's going on, and that's why ultimately I believe there needs to be a unified belt system, like the UFC. The UFC is a unified UFC belt. And for years I've been saying, years ago I said to Zone, if you're going to invest $1 billion into boxing, why are you not trying to replicate a UFC model? Because at the moment, all these guys in boxing, all the money goes into the air. The money doesn't go into a brand. So the Zone investing $1 billion, they could have invested $1 billion into a UFC kind of thing, where you're taking ownership of all these aspects, i.e. the belts. The Zone pumping money in to the governing bodies. Why didn't they make their own governing body? It's honestly, it's super weird. Especially seeing how successful the UFC model's been. $10 billion they've created out of nothing. And especially given, it's not as if, YB, the Zone wouldn't want to come in and compete because the world appreciates how efficient the current structure is. Boxing's a joke. No one knows who's champion. There's about 10 champions in every division. Everyone's got a claim. You can get beat. You can quit and get beat, get stopped, and a year later you're number 1. Oops, Daniel Dubois. Yeah, you can get beat and stopped, You can get topped by some next man, and then a year later, after fighting some bums, you're back at number 1. Yeah? But anyway, that's Daniel Dubois out the way. And I don't mind Dubois, to be fair to him. He got his cherry popped by Joe Joyce, but I don't mind the kid in general, but you ain't number 1. That's what you're not. Yeah? Of all the things Daniel Dubois may well be, he may be, you know what I'm saying? Of all the things he may be, I'll tell you what he ain't. That's number 1. How about that? Yeah? Moving on. Michael Hunter, a.k.a. Mr. Big Mouth, but don't want to get in there with, what's his name? What's that European Don's name? Forgot the guy's name now, but essentially, Michael Hunter was giving all the yam about how hard he was. Oh, my name's Michael Hunter, and I'm really hard. That's what he would say. And then he got called out by, what's the guy's name? It's annoying, but I forgot the guy's name. Either way, he got called out by the guy who everyone's been ducking. Everyone's been ducking this Hrgovic. Everyone's been ducking Hrgovic, yeah? And Michael Hunter was prancing around, and that's the problem, you see. We can all call out AJ. We can all call out Fury. Who wouldn't? I'd fight Fury today. I'd fight Fury. Why not? 10 mil. I'll fight him. Oops. Yeah, it's not hard. We can all do that. People who have never fought a day in their life can call out Fury. I bet there isn't one man who wouldn't fight Fury for 5 mil. I bet there isn't, apart from Dillian White. apart from Shilly and Shite. Yeah, everyone, Joe Public would fight any of these cats for 5 mil. AJ, Fury, no problem. So Michael Hunter thought he was smart. Oh, I'm well hard. My name's Michael Hunter. I'm super hard because I'll fight anyone. Well, no, what you meant to say is that you'll fight someone for 5 mil plus, which we all would do anyway. So you're not that hard, and that's what happened. Unfortunately, Mr. Michael Hunter, Mr. Super Duper Hard, who got beat by Usyk, by the way, got topped by Usyk. That guy there, guess what? Hrgovic in that fight, I believe, was some sort of pre-World Championship fight, where if the winner of Hrgovic and Michael Hunter would have been in line for a belt. Oops. Yeah? He didn't want to do that. Much like, same kind of business as Shilly and Shite. Who Shilly and Shite really beat to get to the World Championship? Don't no one know. So that's where your man's Michael Hunter comes out from. Michael Hunter lined up there against Hrgovic and ain't see no follow through since. He ain't want that fight. And to be fair to Michael Hunter, I give him some credit. He tried to come out, he tried to shill for the belt, he tried to shill for the big opportunity. He didn't get it and he disappeared now. Yeah, he missing. Don't get me wrong, he put a hit piece video out trying to explain why he can't fight Hrgovic, but he gone now. And no one interested. But the problem is, unfortunately, that same man I've explained to you about ducking Hrgovic, somehow he number 2. And again, the question is, what has he done? And I've been massively critical. I'm the one, Mr. YB, I advised Team AJ before the Usyk fight. I said, I'm sick of AJ and DAZN and Eddie Hearn at that point in time, before getting their wigs split by Usyk. They held a lot of power. He was unified champion, he was the money man in the division. I said it's about time DAZN, AJ, Eddie Hearn start leveraging and getting some, and leveraging their power and using it to get in the sport and the division into a better place. What did I mean by that? Well, I said, AJ, don't forget people, before AJ and Usyk was ordered, Usyk versus Joyce was ordered first. Oops. So I said, AJ needs to put his foot down and insist Joe Joyce and Usyk fight. Why? Because they ain't doing nothing else. What had Usyk done to deserve a mandatory shot against the big dog? Nothing. Equally, what had Joe Joyce done? Nothing. And that's how things are supposed to go. I don't know what's happened in boxing. Yeah? I don't know where. It's a weird thing now where you can do nothing and get a big shot just by sitting there, by beating bumps. So AJ should have took responsibility took responsibility and started doing the governing body's job for them. He should have insisted that fight happen. And if they didn't like it, he should have got rid of the belt, and then he can always circle back and get it. Because no one ain't going to want a big massive fight with AJ, are they? Yeah? AJ should have insisted Joyce versus Usyk fight, and then he can fight the winner for the belt. That's what should have happened. Because too often now, you got the people at the top, and these bums, Michael Hunter, Dubois, all these guys on here, Hughie, Fury, Hellenius, every single one of these guys is a bum. And and when I say a bum, I don't mean, well, I'll tell you what I mean. I mean, none of them are fighting each other. Why isn't Dubois fighting Hunter? Why isn't Dubois fighting Hellenius? Why ain't Hughie fighting any of them top 3? It seems to be you can just hang around like Daniel Dubois, get beat by Joe Joyce, and not only beat, he got stopped as well. You can get stopped, and next minute, fight a few bums, and you're number 1. And all of a sudden, these bum slayers, because I'm sorry, but they're all bum slayers. All of a sudden, yeah, these bum slayers, they sit around for a little while and they start complaining. Oh, I've been ducked. Like, people like Dillian White is a perfect example. Dillian White is a perfect example. What's he done? What killers has he fought? He fought leftovers. He fought Joseph Parker, leftovers. Derek Chisora, super duper leftovers. He'd been left there for a year. Yeah? Derek Chisora is a year of Chinese leftovers. 100%, if you bought some chicken balls, yeah, and egg fried rice and left it on the side for a year, that would be Derek Chisora. 100%. So what, apart from leftovers and super leftovers, what has Dillian White actually done? Because let me tell you, YB, you're setting standards that are impossible. No, I'll tell you what standards I'm setting. I'm setting contenders need to fight each other. It's not, the way the world is today in boxing, yeah, it's like there is no contenders fighting each other. It's either random top 10s versus the champion. That's it. There's no middle fights going on. In the UFC, for example, yeah, you have number 3 versus number 4, number 5 versus number 6, and then the winner of them two, you might have the winner of number 3 and 4 versus the winner of number 5 and 6, and that fight is the champion. There's only one champion, which means he can't be the one to do all the work, and that's why I was criticising Team AJ. Why is AJ the one doing all the work? Let some of these guys fight each other, and the reason it's important from a business point of view, I was thinking from Team AJ's point of view, strategically speaking, it's more valuable to them to fight the winner of Joe Joyce and Usyk than it is for him to just, because the problem is, you see, all these guys lining up for a handout, of course they are. Of course they want to be paid millions for not doing a lot. Every single one of these guys asking for a handout or wanting to fight the champion, why wouldn't? That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to want a free $10 million payday. The problem is, it shouldn't be that easy. You shouldn't be able to be like Daniel Dubois, get beat, fight at bums, and a year later you're in number 1, talking about you won a mandatory. That shouldn't how it should be. It should be a lot harder. The road to a $10 million payday should be a lot harder than what not so much, to be fair, Joe Joyce, of all of them, he's probably the most deserving, having beat Daniel Dubois. But even him, yeah, like I said, it should have been Usyk and Joyce. That should have been, and that, don't forget, never mind what I say, that's actually what was written. It was written, Joe Joyce versus Usyk was ordered first, before AJ and Usyk. Oops. And Usyk's team threw their toys out the pram and waited it out. And unfortunately, I don't know what Joe Joyce, I think maybe Joe Joyce's team got paid off to be quiet. Because that fight was ordered and all of a sudden, Sam Jones and Joe Joyce went quiet. They should have insisted. Bottom line. And I think the problem is potentially, Joe Joyce thought, well, I'll just fight the winner anyway. I think Joe Joyce thought, okay, AJ will beat Usyk and then I'll be the number 1 anyway. Not to have had to fight Usyk. So essentially, I'm not even going to really blame all these bottom feeders, because the bottom feeders not trying to do hard work to get a multi-million-dollar payday, that's what they're supposed to do. Yeah, every single person wants to do not a lot and not take a lot of risk and get a lot of payout for it. However, that's the point of the governing bodies. The governing bodies are supposed to step in and say, no, Joe Joyce, no, Usyk. You're not just going to sit back in the cut and wait for the AJ payday. You two will fight each other, and then the winner of that fight gets the AJ fight. And the reason, again, from Team AJ's point of view, they're so short-sighted, and they think they're so smart, but they ain't smart. They're low IQ'd, a lot of them are. Because if they had any vision, they'd understand that the best pay-per-view fights, you generate much more value fighting people who have a big profile, obviously. At the moment, AJ's whole career, more or less, has been based on him fighting some random dude who no one know. That's the facts. Yeah? Whereas, if AJ was fighting people who, for example, again, look at the whole Joyce and Usyk situation. Usyk, yeah, he had a bit, he beat Chisora, but what's he really done? Nothing. I believe that fight would have been, the AJ and Usyk fight would be exponentially bigger having had the Usyk and Joyce fight first. That's how you think about the mega fights we have. People like Alvarez and Golovkin. The reason Alvarez and Golovkin is big because you have two athletes who have beat the best around. AJ, his whole career, he's been fighting these bottom feeders. Just people looking for handouts. Andy Ruiz, handout. What's he done apart from lose to Joseph Parker? Yeah, and that's why the Klitschko fight was the biggest ever, because Klitschko was a top dog versus a top dog. That's why Fury and AJ would have been a big fight. Do you understand? But there's no reason they should all really be, all of them should be big fights. People like Joyce and Usyk should be fighting. It shouldn't. I mean, it's madness, yeah, that you can be Usyk. You can what? What did Usyk do? Usyk came from cruiserweight, fought Derek Chisora, and then next thing I know, he was claiming about how he's being ducked and talking about he's going to sue. How do you go from one weight division to how do you move up weight division, fight Derek Chisora in a close fight? It's not even like you can say, well, YB, he knocked out Chisora in the first round. You went life and death with Chisora. How can a man come from a weight division, go life and death with Chisora, and then be sitting there crying? I remember covering it. I remember last year, Usyk crying about how he's been done wrong, like Dillian White has. I remember Alexander Usyk and his manager putting videos out crying about how they've been done wrong, even though the Joyce fight had already been ordered. But again, it was on AJ. I'm not going to blame Usyk's team. Usyk's team, that's their job to not do a lot and get paid. But I blame Team AJ because they think Eddie Hearn think he's so smart. Why wasn't Eddie Hearn insisting? No, you need to go and fight. Usyk is what, or Joe Joyce and Usyk need to fight as it was ordered. Why did we never hear that narrative out of Team AJ's so smart mouth? Oh, my name's Eddie Hearn and I'm apples and pears, I'm so smart. Why didn't Team AJ ever say that? Joe Joyce, Usyk need to fight. We will relinquish. Bear in mind again, Team AJ at that point in time have all the power. They're the big name. There's nothing wrong with relinquishing that belt, letting Joyce and Usyk fight, and then circle back. Don't forget, people, a great example. Look at the Joe Parker fight. AJ versus Joe Parker was the pay-per-view record. Why? Because it was AJ versus champion. Them narratives sell. That's why the UFC made an interim belt. Whether we like it or not, champion versus champion fights are much bigger than champion versus bumslayer, versus Usyk the bumslayer. So if you're thinking strategically from a money point of view, why weren't Team AJ thinking, you know what, this is actually an opportunity for us? Number one, if we relinquish the belt, that builds. If we relinquish the belt, that then number one gives us a champion to fight, and number two, it only gives us a champion to go and fight when we know. Look at the Klitschko fight. Look at the Joseph Parker fight. Champions add much more value to them. Add much more pay-per-view value, but also in terms of bottom line. In terms of bottom line exposure and and commercial building of your opponent. Because guess what? Joyce versus Usyk is a big fight in itself. That's a pay-per-view fight. So the winner of that fight genuinely would have been, wow, look, we got the whatever belt. We got the WBO champion Alexander Usyk, who just beat Joe Joyce, versus AJ. That's a much bigger fight than just AJ versus the bumslayer Usyk. As it happens, he lost anyway, but that's the point. AJ, and that's the thing. The optics of it as well. AJ just lost here to a man who ain't done nothing at heavyweight. The optics, from a risk point of view, it would have been much better for AJ to lose to a man who's beat Joe Joyce in Usyk than AJ beating to a middleweight who ain't done nothing, who looked awful against Derek Chisora. Do you understand? On every aspect, financially, optics-wise, from every aspect, Team AJ should have demanded for Joe Joyce to fight Usyk and or relinquish their belt. But Eddie Hearn so smart, AJ, so they're thick. I'm sorry, Eddie Hearn thick, Matchroom thick, Team AJ thick. Oh, my name's 258 Management and I'm so smart. You're dopey. That's what you is, 100%. Yeah? There's no doubt about it. YB number one manager in the whole division, in the whole world right now, and number two trainer. That's a fact. And if you don't like it, what? You lost to a middleweight. You lost to a man who jumped up to heavyweight, went life and death with Chisora, and that's that. And you got paid half of what you. I know what have a lie. If Usyk had beat Joyce, that fight would have been massive. The age on the run around. Yeah, Usyk champion versus AJ champion. That would have been huge. But anyway, the bottom line is, man, you see that you got Hughie Fury number 4 and you got AJ number 5, and I understand AJ lost, but I'm sorry, all that capital he built up, beating this guy, beating that guy, stopping this guy, stopping that guy, are you telling me that in one loss you can go from champion to number 5? And again, I wouldn't mind so much if these other guys were doing so much, but given AJ's history, one loss to Usyk does not put him below Hughie Fury. And even with Deontay Wilder here, Deontay Wilder, 1 loss to or 2 losses to Tyson Fury, the best in the division, does not put you below Hughie Fury. Hughie Fury ain't done a lick of nothing. Let's call it a spade. In fact, Hughie Fury himself has lost to everyone. Lost to everyone. So it's baffling. How can a man who's never been a champion, who's lost to everyone, be above AJ and Deontay Wilder right now? Yeah, AJ and Deontay Wilder have both beat top level dudes, something Hughie Fury's never done. So that, in my mind, yeah, there should be no, unless Hughie Fury does something, there should be no way he can ever be above them two. Same as Helenius. Helenius beat Kalinowski. Okay, one decent win. Well, that gets you number 3 now. Honestly, it's unbelievable. And I guess my crazy thing is, I was about to say, I guess it comes down to money, but unless there's serious backroom deals going on, the money thing doesn't even make sense. In as much as AJ and Deontay Wilder will be paying the most sanctioning fees just because of their size of their fights. So I'm baffled. how. I'm not even sure what this is. Honestly, it looks like someone's drunk at the top and they're just literally doing ip-dip-do, truth be known. These are 100%. The WBA should be known as the ip-dip-do rankings.